Let me start off this video by saying I felt like red today when I got up to make this video to talk about the transits of the week of October 6th all the way to the 12th. But yeah, I'm feeling red today. Feeling red maybe all week, but more on the inside than outside, right? So there's my secret confession to start off this transit report for the week. I am making this on October 5th here on a Sunday, and the moon here in several hours is going to leave watery, dreamy, escapey Pisces and go into Aries to set itself up for the big full moon in Aries that's going to happen here on October 6th, 8:47 p.m. There's a video up here, a link that I made on the full moon in Aries and my opinions about whether you express something or not, or do you wait, and my views on that. Check out the video, you'll see it here. But you know, that full moon does happen on the 6th. And importantly, on Monday, the 6th Pacific time, I think besides the full moon, the important transit of that day is Mercury is leaving the sign of Libra, where it tries to find word balance, thought balance, negotiations, and relating with others, and where others are heard or not heard, or the balancing of that, and goes into the internal space of Scorpio, the watery, mysterious, deep, probing scorpionic realm that Mercury will be acquiring messages in, researching through. And this is going to go on for a while, by the way, because we're going to have Mercury in Scorpio all the way through the end of this month. And then we're going to go in November. Mercury's going to go Sag and go backwards. And it will go all the way backwards to 20 degrees Scorpio. And next thing you know, all of October and most of November is a Mercury in Scorpio time. So it's a long journey that Mercury's going to do. It starts here on Monday, the 6th at 9:40 a.m. And then the Mercuryness continues as we get into the 7th Pacific time on my Tuesday, because officially Mercury is going to be squared by Pluto in Aquarius. I talked about this in the full moon video of how Pluto deals with obsession, investigation, and getting to the heart and root and the darkness of matters, to the depth and the core of things and things you might not even know. And then Pluto is coming in there, and this combination of a square aspect, which can be challenging and filled with ultimatums internally and externally, right? If used in a certain way too, it's highly combustive in some ways, but can be focused when it comes to investigational matters, right? And swimming in those deep emotional places. So it's important to learn how to use this. And Mercury in Scorpio's initial part of entering the sign is immediately influenced and tattooed by Pluto. And I think this square pretty much sets up the next 2 months of Mercury and what it's going to do, a lot of it in Scorpio and some of it in Sag. So, you know, here is very important to take notes of it. That's why in my video I was saying, can you watch your words? Do you, in the inflammation way of Aries moon and the impulsive way of in the sense getting your essential needs met through the moon and doing it in Aries way with Mercury and Scorpio, do you pinpoint, do you come out it a certain way, right? Or do you wait? And do you get all the mental facts, all the emotional matter and narratives, right? Because it's going to play out for the next 2 months. That's my take on it. But Mercury-Pluto square happens at 7:40 a.m. here on the Tuesday. One more thing I will say too about this is, if used creatively, the messages that can come from a place like this can affect the whole, the Plutonian and Aquarius whole. And we need at times situations where scorpionic energy comes through, where it cuts to the truth, it cuts through the mishmash and the distraction, right? It cuts through like the illusions of things. And if you can use it in that way creatively, right? I think then one can use that and use currently Mars and Scorpio in the sky in the scorpionic part of your chart and really get to the heart of something. And when you're doing it creatively, it's such a great feeling when you're dialed in that way, right? So just a little suggestion there. On Tuesday later on at night on Pacific time, moon goes into Taurus, right? So we get out of the fieriness, the impulsiveness, right? The battlefield of Aries, and we get into the garden of Taurus. Laziness is actually good, I think, for the next 2.5 days after Tuesday, to be honest, after what could be a combustible full moon, right? And I think here, moon in Taurus, I dig it. I always dig it. Watch the sugar. Off the bat on Wednesday, moon's going to square Pluto. You see what I'm saying? See what's happening here? And then moon will be opposite Mercury in Scorpio, right? Can you stay grounded through all this? And can the Mercury in Scorpio position, after being present with squaring with Pluto, find some sort of rock, some sort of something earth to bring it down, to maybe take a little bit of the edge off internally, right? And so when we're dealing with the opposites of like Scorpio and Taurus, they're both fixed signs. They can both be very stubborn. But I think when you find the middle space in between the two, it's a Mars-Venus story, right? Taurus moon is ruled by Venus, and anything Scorpio is ruled by Mars, right? So here is, can you find a certain type of relating? So if the intensity of Scorpio is there and the probing mind is there, maybe we can just pull it down to earth a little bit, right? Imagine you have a small running creek. It's an intense one filled with mystery and the truth. And then it's running through a piece of land where it can slowly, in a sense, hydrate it. And that land can contain it and take the intensity and let that intensity in the water form spread throughout the earth and the roots, right? So we find some little balance there if possible. Did I just say that? I just did. I just did. 4:40 a.m. though. On Wednesday, we deal with the Venus and Virgo sextile Jupiter and Cancer, which was part of the full moon. It's still into play. What would a Venus and Virgo do after running through the south node and letting go of something or cutting something out or realizing and discerning through a sensory level through Virgo? Remember, Virgo wants to not just get the details, but it wants to find what is not usable anymore in practical ways, and then exchanging that for something that is usable or does have use so it can benefit the whole, right? And so there's a relating aspect here with Venus doing this. And Jupiter here in Cancer is like, I think, showing not just the mental technical parts of it, but it's to understand the emotional part. And I think anything with Cancer will show you a bigger whole emotional story that has history behind it and memory, right? But we also want to create new memories. And if some of the old memories are hard, we want to flip the story, right? So I think that's the bigger picture with Jupiter and Cancer for the year that it's there until next June. But in a situation like this where it touches Venus and Virgo and the discernment that's happening there, and let's not forget what Venus and Virgo loves and has a tendency, loves to do. And it's to serve, and it's to serve something, to love something, and through service, through helping, right? This is another part of it. So here, Jupiter, I think, uplifts that part of Venus and Virgo and reminds Venus and Virgo of, you could still do this with healthy boundaries and where you don't lose yourself and where it's not unbalanced. Venus and Virgo, I think, had to come to terms going through the South Node of like how it's done service and how it loves through that, through helping and through discerning. And a lot of times they could find themselves, Venus and Virgo situations, where they're not appreciated for what they do, for how they serve, or one doesn't follow their instructions of how to love. and reciprocate that, right? So basically, I think Jupiter in Cancer takes the edges off of that and shows that there's something more, and we can let go of a little bit of the fact of it and the rules of it, and more move and swim through a place where then I think Venus and Virgo can find solutions and a new way to love and to attract, but it comes from a more emotional place than a more mental place, right? So I think it's interesting because it's tied into this full moon that we just came out of, and here we are just a couple days later with the exact sextile that happens at 4:48 a.m. on Wednesday, my time. And we move to Thursday the 9th. The moon in Taurus is going to make a ton of aspects to Venus and Jupiter. They're pretty good ones, actually. They're all sextiles and trines. We got earth and water basically going on with Taurus making connections to Jupiter in a water sign Cancer, and then to the Piscean stuff eventually with Saturn sextile. And then it's later on Thursday the 9th here that we get mental again with the moon in Gemini. Now, Mercury and Scorpio transit didn't just disappear through all this, and now it's in play again because the moon in Gemini, how it emotionally copes and processes is going to be through communication and through weighing out of things and seeing things from different angles and different landscapes, right? It's going to do it mentally, and it's going to do it through that Mercury and Scorpio, and Mars is over there too. So the intensity is there again, but just from different angles. And sometimes Mercury and Scorpio, being a fixed sign that it is, can be on one path, which is great. That's what it's for. But in the beginning of this journey here for the next couple months with Mercury and Scorpio, maybe this Gemini moon shows a couple different ways of processing the situation, right? And now I'm back to the full moon earlier in the week. Do you say that certain what you think is the truth, right? Or someone saying it to you? A couple days later, Mercury or the moon's in Gemini, maybe you're seeing it a little bit differently, or there's something you didn't catch when you were feeling that volcano for the full moon and boom, wanting to say something. Maybe there's another side to something. That's why I'm more of the person here on this Mercury and Scorpio transit to build a story or a case for something. Because when the time comes, and there will be several times, to then speak truth to your power, you'll have it together, right? But sometimes people need to do something like on a full moon early in the week in Aries and just blurt it out. But I said in my video, you got to just deal with the consequences later and a possible cleanup. Okay, so anyway, the moon goes into Gemini on the 9th Thursday. We'll make before it leaves into the 10th, we'll do a moon-Uranus conjunction. Right? Just noted. On the 10th, moon trines Pluto, and we get into the 11th, where then Venus in Virgo continues the story, right? It had a sextile with Jupiter, and now it's confronted by Saturn in Pisces. Mercury in Virgo did this way back. Mars in Virgo did this way back. For those of you, as I mentioned on my videos this year, we're a Pisces or Virgo rising, Pisces rising, all this stuff. It's another monumental moment this week is what Venus is doing. And this time, though, it has to deal with Saturn back in Pisces. Here's the deal. A lot of times when we're dealing with transits that have many chapters, like the eclipse story in Virgo and Pisces, we look at it as a story. And if you can look at it as like how novels that you might read or enjoy, there's usually a constant thread and a quest that's involved. Whether you know all the details or not, usually in a novel, you're going on that quest and then you're on tangents, or certain things happen, or the story turns in one direction. But usually it does end up in a certain place, right? But we have to make note of the places where we're in the novel, we are almost checking in, that so much has happened, and then there's a check-in place, a checkpoint, or a path in the road that it's like, oh, wait a second, we have to stop. And it's there where we take in everything that just happened previously in the storyline. And so this is kind of what happens basically with Venus this week when it's opposite Saturn and Pisces. And we know Saturn was in Pisces earlier this year and left there at the end of May of this year. And now it's retrograding back into Pisces. So there is a story to look at here by those affected by the Pisces Virgo eclipses. It continues this eclipse story. So When Venus is opposite Saturn at 4:10 a.m. on my Saturday, the 11th, we have a check-in. It's a boundary marker. It's like, hey, what did you learn through the last month and a half when the eclipses happened? What did you learn earlier this year in March when the eclipses happened? Basically, when we're touching on Pisces, Virgo parts of your chart, and what we've done for the last month and a half with eclipses that happened in Pisces, Virgo. And here we are checking in, and Saturn is like, hey, what did you learn? Tell me. You can look at this in a positive way as some sort of mentorship situation where you have to like, what did you learn, young person, along this journey? Or do you remember what I told you earlier in the year when the eclipses happened? Did you take notes? Venus in Virgo. Did you last weekend when you went through the South Node in Virgo, tell me what you eliminated, tell me what you let go, and tell me why you did it. It's not that you just say factually, well, I let go of this and this. Saturn in Pisces is going to say here, give me the deeper reason why, the philosophical reason why. And I say this because Saturn in Pisces, Saturn wants boundaries, slows down times. You have to answer to or become the authority on this subject. And Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. And we know Jupiter's in the sign of Cancer. And now we know that several days before, Venus had a conversation with Jupiter in Cancer, right? And it's asking for the more deeper vision emotionally when it comes to relating or whatever, when it comes to the Virgo part of your chart. Now, Saturn is basically like giving the quiz. You just did eclipses for the month and a half. You just ran into Jupiter down by the creek the other day. And now here's the test. So here's a piece of paper. It's not multiple choice. You're going to write an essay and you're going to tell me what you picked up along the way, right? And then not only that, I'm going to test you to see how present you are with the situation. And then as a bonus, I'm going to ask you, what are you going to do next with this? So Saturn does this. I like this kind of stuff. It can be very difficult for people who are, let's say, in the Virgo parts of the chart, or an ongoing story of elimination with the South Node there and something you have to say goodbye to. You know, these eclipses in Virgo and Pisces for a year and a half. We're going to do the full moon eclipse in Virgo next March. It's going to be like one of the big final chapters in this story. Right now, this part of the novel is Saturn going, stop, tell me the deeper reasons why, and tell me what you've learned. And it'll be discerning, right? A discerning thing. I think Venus and Virgo can step up to situations like this if they are present and aware, you know, in the Virgo part of your chart. I don't think it's unavoidable, you know, in one's Virgo part of the chart, what they've had to confront and eliminate or piece out, take something apart and see like, oh, this is the thing that's just not quite working, you know, and put something back in. There's a map to this. There's an instruction manual for this for Venus and Virgo, right? Saturn asks for more than the instruction manual. It's asking for the bigger reasons, the philosophical reasons why you're on this journey and why things happen to you. So that's my version of Venus opposite Saturn here on the 11th at 4:10 a.m. Later on that night, the 11th going into the 12th, we do Moon in Cancer, and we get into the watery realm again, and maybe a little bit of tears, maybe a little bit of tomato basil soup with like sourdough starter bread and grilled cheese, and dip it in the soup. That sounds good. That's the 12th on a Sunday. When we get into 13th, I'll add an extra day. It's quickie. I'll talk about this next week. Venus then finally leaves Virgo and enters the home, one of the two homes she loves to be in, and that is Libra on 13th, my Monday Pacific time at 2:18 p.m. And off the bat, Venus is going to meet Neptune, and it is that day that Pluto is going to station direct in Aquarius and start to move forward again. There is more coming on Venus stuff next week, actually, as we're going to be building up to more, in a sense, Venus-y things here, because on the 21st of October, we'll be doing the new moon in Libra. And as we go through October, yes, Venus will switch signs. But the biggest thing happening in the background in my mind is the building water connections, the building water trine that will be happening into the end of later part of October and into November. We're going to have Saturn in Pisces, Jupiter in Cancer, Mars in Scorpio, Mercury in Scorpio. They're going to be getting closer in a harmonic trine aspect. So we're slowly dipping into mysterious, deep emotional waters for October. And it doesn't end, because when we get into November, I think it becomes very clear, the water. And that is why I am taking a more conservative approach this month with how we talk and express ourselves through Mercury and Scorpio, because I think there's a lot to probe and investigate. And when any scorpionic person out there knows, once they get dialed in on investigating something, they can't stop until they get to the final place, until they know every single thing, and then they are satisfied. And in that satisfactory place is then where one can then say the final truth. So just ask any Scorpio in your life, if they have their balance and have their shiz together, you know what that is and how they do it. And a lot of times they're doing it alone. And a lot of times they're doing it under the scenes, behind stage, backstage, slowly, while everybody's getting caught up in whatever social media posts or political something that happens out there. The true players are behind the scenes, and they're watching everything and everyone, and they're getting it all the information that they need. And they're waiting for that place to strike. Just use the striking for positive things, my friends, okay? How you wield that power, okay? And that's, be conscious of the type of power you're in, you know. Remember, this Mercury and Scorpio transit is birthed with a Pluto situation involved, and then we're going to do a retrograde. So really think about this, right? Those are my opinions, and that is my off the cuff, off the top of here forecast for the week. Thank you to all my Patreon members, my new subscribers. By the way, they're coming here. I have a new 3 questions video with astrologers coming up. Another one I'm about to edit. I just released another one. My Patreon members know, my paid members, they have a whole hour-long audio forecast for the month that I did. By joining my channel, by joining a couple of my tiers on Patreon, you get access to that. More is coming your way. I already told you guys about this. On that note, you made it this far, you're new. Subscribe to a brother. Have some more sparkles in your life. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. Okay. On that note, I'll see you guys soon.